9.1% inflation. 9.1% inflation. Eggs up 33%. Lunch meats up 16%. Funniest, most interesting segment of the week, totally spontaneous this week, when I asked TC whether she favored the pre-sliced lunch meats or stuck around and waited in line for the fresh stuff. And of course, a torrent of social media reaction. But more seriously, you know who understood the real threat of inflation? Those who've invested in gold and silver with Birch Gold Group. They're protecting their savings from a highly turbulent economy by diversifying their 401k or IRA into gold, physical gold. And it's not too late for you to take action. Here's what the deal is. Text Smerconish to 989898. This is the free kit you got. Fancy schmancy with a lot of good data inside from Birch Gold. They're the ones that I trust. I'm not a prepper. You know, I don't have stuff in my basement like, oh, the world's going to hell in a handbasket. Hurry up and get gold. That's not where I'm coming from. I just think it's smart to diversify. They've got an A+ rating with the better. What you've got to do is text Smerconish to 989898. Claim your free no obligation info kit and protect your savings with gold. That's the kit. Ladies and gentlemen, good to be back. I have had a 2-week vacation from both radio and television. I don't think that I've been off for 2 consecutive weeks radio in the 8 or 9 years that I've been on SiriusXM. I know that I haven't been off 2 consecutive weeks from CNN, so it's good to be back. Unfortunately, with somewhat of a Debbie Downer message, but not entirely. Let's get to the good stuff first so that I can reward all of those of you who are here live. This is what it means in the midst of July to be able to host a television program. Yeah, baby. And yes, they are the shoes. I can get away with, what would you call these? Cranberry? Look, it's just me in a Wawa at 10 minutes of 6 this morning, so I can wear whatever the hell I want. But the shoes seem to be a hit. Just saying. By the way, I will look at your comments. Yeah. Veronica, you like that, right? Yeah. Jamal loved it. Bill Ware enjoyed it. Robert, you want a closer look at the shoes? They look like OJ's, says Harvey. Right. Some ugly ass shoes, right? Do you want to actually see the shoes? And don't mind the black socks because, again, who's out there in the morning? By the time I go home, I'll take off the socks. By popular demand, there you are. Yeah, they go with my walker, and they're particularly popular at the early bird special. All right? Okay, so now that the levity is over, if you listen to the radio program this week, you know that I came back from vacation in somewhat of a dour mood. And I said at the outset that when I come home, I'm always sort of intent on doing a better job reading in on world news. Tom Friedman said the world is flat. Many here don't treat it as such. In other words, we're really insular and we focus on our own headlines and our own news and don't often think of our role on a global stage. Yes, I came home with that view. Secondly, as nice as it is to travel outside the United States, I always come back grateful at having been born in this country and to be a citizen in this country and to be raising children in this country. I love it. It's an overused line, but I really do. But for the first time in my life, I came home with a sense of foreboding about the potential for a great unraveling, or as I'm going to describe it on CNN today, America's national nervous breakdown. Those are Jeffrey Goldberg's words. He used them in a podcast with Brian Stelter, and with attribution, I will use them today. Yeah, our national nervous breakdown. In other words, I was looking at the United States from afar. And what was I looking at? I was looking at leadership and polarization and incivility. And I was looking at our immigration crisis. And I mean, proper management of the border. That incident where 50 plus people died in San Antonio in the back of a tractor trailer really shook me up. And of course, the violence, Buffalo and Uvalde And the random acts of violence, I mean, the number of people who were killed in Chicago exceeded those killed in Highland Park, which also occurred while I was away. So like all of this negativity really bummed me out. And then when I land and I'm reading in now on a more substantive level, I read the Rand Corporation analysis, Dr. Michael Mazer, who was a guest immediately on radio when I got back. And he said, most Americans have a sense of foreboding about the country, that we have more fear than we have optimism about the direction of the United States. So all of this is sort of on my mind. And then I see a Max Fisher piece in the New York Times. Max was also a guest on the radio program this week. I thought we hit the ground running, except for some technical issues on Monday. But Max Fisher, channeling Harvard's Steven Pinker, says, wait a minute, hold on. The 24/7 news cycle, the beast has to be fed. And it's the negativity that we're fed, and things are actually a hell of a lot better today than they've been at any point in human development. And Steven Pinker will be on CNN with me today. He sent notes to my staff on this issue with his thinking. Let me just give you a taste of what he says. Of all the beneficial trends that I documented in my most recent book, Enlightenment Now, all are continuing except for U.S. homicides, interstate war because of Putin's aggression, and life expectancy in the U.S. because of COVID and opioid overdoses. But it's crucial, he says, to remember that none of these statistics has returned to the level of the 1990s or before. We're still better off than our parents were at our age, though one can never predict with certainty whether a reversal will be a temporary blip or a U-turn. Most positive global trends have oscillations and downticks, and then they resume their progress. Like life expectancy during the Spanish flu, or in Africa after HIV and AIDS. In particular, life expectancy, GDP per capita, and education, being healthy, wealthy, and wise, are all resuming their upward trends. So Pinker says, step back, look at the data in the context of global history, and we're all damn lucky to be alive at this point in American history. Then something else. I saw historical economists Ram Abramitsky from Stanford and a colleague from Princeton who have just published a brand new book. I already interviewed him on the program this week as well. Three great guests, Mazer, Max Fisher, and Ram Abramitsky. But what they document in that latter example is how the American dream persists. The countries have changed. So, I was away with my family on part pure vacation and on part going to the village where my father-in-law, my wife's father, was born and raised. And I tell this story not because I think that our family history is unique, but rather I think it's typical of so many. In his case, Renato John Nardini was born in a village that today has a population of 15. I think it was about 300 in the 40s and 50s. Camporagana is what it's called. It's in Tuscany near Liguria. That makes it sound glamorous. It's not. No running water, no electricity when he was born and raised. He was one of 5 siblings, and one of his brothers was a shepherd. You may have seen an Instagram that I put into my feed, just goats, randomly on the roadway that we were driving. Well, his brother was a shepherd, but nevertheless, he came to the United States, my wife's father, and became an orthopedist, a true, Italian rags to American riches kind of story. And I know so many of you have your own. There's a part of us, all right, I'll say there's a part of me that thinks like that's over. Ellis Island doesn't exist, and the dream expressed that way doesn't continue, but it does. The data of the new book says just the countries have changed. And today's Dominican Republic is yesterday's Italy. And I think it's important to remember that we're still giving that sense of progressing up the economic ladder. But then, as I said, the San Antonio incident, where I think the number was 53 who died in the back of a tractor trailer, we got to get our shit together. We need rules. We can't have porous borders. There needs to be a framework. if we had some leadership and they wouldn't continually kick the can down the road, I really believe that immigration is something that could be solved. But the leadership situation in this country, one president is unfit and another is too old. That's it. I am going to say it that directly on television today. And you know who's who. One of them is unfit. You can pick and choose what data comes out of January 6th, question some of it, but that investigation has just painted a picture that is so compelling, at least to me, that he was unfit then and he will be unfit in the future. It brings me no glee to say that, nor do I get any sense of jolly out of the fact that I have to say our current president's too old. I think he's a good and decent man. But to run again in 2024, no. And when in May I said on television he should announce before the midterm that he's not running for his own sake and the sake of the nation, there were howls of protest. How could you say that on CNN? You belong on Fox. Now everybody's saying it. The New York Times is saying it. Democrats, elected officials are all saying it behind closed doors. So the combination of all of these things, on one hand, has me bummed. But then I look at the social science and I listen to Dr. Mazur and I listen to Ran Abramitsky and I listen to Steven Pinker and I say, okay, all things in moderation, which is not to take away from the challenges to the republic that we face. They're real. And if we don't keep it together in terms of our government framework, then we can never deal with any of these issues. I'm worried we're coming apart at the seams. Can be fixed. But that's what concerns me the most. I'm worried that we're coming apart at the seams. So, I'm going to try and express that in a rather lengthy. I've been working for the last 3 days on a commentary. I delivered thoughts on radio Monday that were based on an outline that I'd written on an airplane ride home, and then we had technical issues, and it didn't go as well as I would have liked. And then I kept thinking about this issue and realizing other people are feeling the exact same way. This conversation is now everywhere. Then I read where Goldberg had told Brian Stelter that it's a national nervous breakdown. And I thought, this is the way that I want to go back on television. I want to put aside whether it's going to take 8 minutes, I don't know, and try and paint the picture of the concerns, provide some of the optimism, and fashion it into a survey question similar to what we had earlier in the week. Today at Smerconish.com, I'm asking, are concerns about America's unraveling, are they overblown? Are concerns about America's unraveling overblown? So make sure you're voting at Smerconish.com. Other things that I'll get into on television today, Elon Musk called Scott Galloway from NYU, friend of the program, friend of mine, a numbskull. I love that expression, numbskull. It's like shithead. There's some words that just don't get used anymore that have got to get used again. And I think Scott Galloway probably wears on his sleeve that Elon Musk called him a numbskull. I want to ask Scott Galloway, it's kind of funny how there's been this reversal. First, Twitter didn't want to be acquired by Musk. Now they're forcing him to go ahead with the deal. Is this all a negotiation? I don't know. That bodega killing in New York City, isn't it completely reversed? I mean, here's how I understand it in the very short version. Woman comes in for a bag of chips. Her card, some type of government assistance, doesn't work. Bodega owner grabs the chips back. Woman's offended, brings in her boyfriend. He's a con. He gets physical with the bodega owner, who grabs a box cutter and kills him. And then the bodega owner gets stabbed by the girlfriend who started the whole thing. Bodega owner or worker, I don't know if he owns the joint, he's charged. The girlfriend's not charged. The ex-con is now dead. I want to break that down as well. And James Patterson, who has sold more than 400 million books and was a great radio guest recently, has now written a book that's unique because it's a memoir. And it's really interesting. So he'll be my guest as well. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate you reading, subscribing to, and reading the newsletter. Thank you listening to the radio program. TC has a particularly poignant TC After Dark episode this week. I know the elements of the story. I'm going to listen to it myself at some point this weekend. You want to see the shorts again? Okay, one more time, and then I got to get to work. There you go. A little too big in the waist, but not a bad combo. You know, red, white, or cranberry, white, and blue. Have a wonderful day. I will read all your comments later, and I appreciate you. See ya.